California, Ro Khanna. Congressman Khanna, welcome to Uncensored again. You hit the news because you were detained, you said, in the West Bank in Israel for 90 minutes by armed Israeli settlers during a visit there last week. You posted on X, Israeli settlers brandishing American-made M4s detained me and other Americans on my trip to Palestine. When the IDF arrived, they sided with the settlers and continued our detention. They made a huge mistake. Now, you were visiting a small Palestinian village that was abandoned after escalating attacks from settlers and then demolished. You were eventually allowed to continue your journey, but this has created a huge firestorm, obviously. A spokesman for the Israeli military said it received a report of Israeli civilians unlawfully blocking the vehicles of foreign nationals and members of the news media near the village. Troops were dispatched to reopen the road. The spokesman said the military disputed its soldiers had participated in blocking the exit and said the identity of the armed civilian was being reviewed. And when Benjamin Netanyahu was asked about this, he said this.
We're a country of laws, and people who break the law, we take them to court. In the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria, we've had thousands of attempted attacks and warnings against terrorist activities, against innocent Israelis, families, mother with their children driving along the road. They're stopped by terrorists and they kill them. And this has happened again and again and again. There is a vigilante effort, not by the settler community. They're 99.9%, law-abiding citizens. I don't want vigilantes of any kind. And we are working to put them under the law. But I think if we put things in perspective, we should see that we have thousands of attacks and some few, but obvious breaking of the law. Then we apply the full measure of the law against them.
Now, what's interesting about this is that Haaretz, which is one of the big newspapers over there, wrote an editorial on the incident in which it was entitled, Ro Khanna got the VIP version of what West Bank Palestinians face every day. And certainly there have been myriad reports of appalling behaviour by Israeli settlers against Palestinians, very aggressive expansion of settlements, and repeated evidence in these reports of the IDF siding with the settlers, even when they appear to be committing crimes. So, Haaretz is not wrong here by categorising this as being you, as an American over there, obviously encountering what Palestinians get all the time. So a long-winded intro, my apologies for that. But Ro Khanna, your response in particular to what Netanyahu said there.
Well, I appreciate your laying out all the facts. I am just stunned that Americans are detained by vigilantes. A foreign government cooperates with those vigilantes, and the American factual account is being disputed. I don't understand it. I mean, there was a New York Times photographer there. It's not just my testimony. It is the testimony of Israelis who were with me. It is the testimony of security forces. It was written up in detail in Reuters and the New York Times. And the prime minister is denying what happened. His ambassador is denying what happened. I guess people who can lie about a genocide feel licensed to lie even about the illegal detention and threatening of American citizens. But what is outrageous is if this happened anywhere else in the world, it would be a massive international incident, and it would require the government to immediately arrest the people who did this and to investigate the soldiers who did this.
A lot of your critics, as you know, because they've come racing out to criticise you, the Israeli ambassador to the US, Dr. Michael Leiter, said you mischaracterised it. He accused you of visiting the West Bank as a political stunt to distract from your past support of Graham Plattner, the former Maine US Senate candidate accused of sexual assault, and to promote your own presidential run for the White House in 2028. What do you say to that?
Well, he didn't describe any of my 3 previous visits to Israel as political stunts. What bothers them is that I said I wanted to have a Palestinian-led tour through the West Bank. And I informed the Israeli government that I was going. Obviously, I got through the airport. They helped me get back home. But what bothers them is that I said I was going to visit Palestine from a Palestinian perspective. And it's not just about me. They don't want other American politicians to do that. Just today, Piers, there was body camera footage released about this whole incident, which shows that the IDFs were siding with the settlers. And so the ambassador is on national television just lying. Now, their hope is that America just moves on and they can obfuscate the facts. But they're really risking the anger of a lot of people in America because this was how they treated American passport holders.
And what is extraordinary is it comes against a backdrop of Israel getting more and more unpopular globally, but especially in the United States, with nearly 2/3 of US adults now having a negative view of Israel, which is significantly up year on year. I've repeatedly called out members of the Israeli government like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in particular, whose rhetoric and actions, and in particular actually involving the aggressive expansion of settlements on the West Bank and the IDF complicity in that, these guys, they don't seem to care about how unpopular they make Israel if they can have license to achieve their bigger plan, which appears to be expelling all the Palestinians out of Gaza, out of the West Bank, getting rid of maybe up to 1 million people out of southern Lebanon as well now, that they have a grand plan here and they don't really care about global opprobrium for it.
You're absolutely right. It's just the utter arrogance of power. Here's what would happen in a normal situation. Let's say this happened to me in Saudi Arabia or China, not necessarily always aligned with the United States. You would have the head of state or some cabinet member come out and say, we absolutely condemn what happened to Congressman Khanna and the other Americans. We will make sure that we take prosecutorial action against the vigilantes who did this, and we will have an internal investigation. This is not how we do business, and we're sorry that this happened to Americans. And if they did that, it would be a one-day story. But the fact that they are calling into question my credibility, calling into credibility the New York Times photographer, the New York Times journalist, the Israeli citizens who were testifying to this, denying that there was anything wrong. It just shows how arrogant they are to deny things that people are seeing with their own eyes on video.
What do you make as a high-profile American politician?
Here's what makes this story so unsettling for so many people. Imagine for a moment that an American member of Congress reported being detained during an overseas visit, and the immediate response from a foreign government was not concern, not investigation, but outright denial. Whether you agree with every aspect of Representative Ro Khanna's account or not, that's the question many observers are asking. Would the reaction be different if the country involved were viewed as a geopolitical rival rather than a close ally? And this is where democracy meets denial, because one of the fundamental principles of democratic accountability is that standards should be consistent. If Americans expect transparency and protection for their elected officials abroad, that expectation shouldn't depend on which foreign government is involved. Listen closely. This is the tell. Much of the debate quickly shifted away from the reported incident itself and toward questioning the credibility of those describing it. But when multiple journalists, witnesses, and independent reports become part of the public conversation, the issue grows beyond a simple political disagreement. People naturally begin asking whether the facts are being examined fairly or filtered through existing political loyalties. That's why this moment resonated far beyond one congressman's experience. For many Americans, the larger concern isn't just what happened on that particular day. It's whether criticism is applied evenly. We've seen this before. Actions that might trigger outrage when committed by an adversary are sometimes met with hesitation or silence when committed by an ally. And when citizens notice those differences, trust begins to erode, because accountability loses credibility when it appears selective. Now, supporters of Israel and critics of Israel often interpret these events very differently. But there is a broader democratic principle worth protecting here. Elected officials, journalists, and ordinary citizens should be able to ask difficult questions about government actions without those questions being dismissed simply because they're politically uncomfortable. That's not hostility. That's oversight. And oversight is essential in every democracy. The deeper issue many people are wrestling with is whether political relationships can sometimes create blind spots. When strategic alliances become so important that criticism is automatically treated as disloyalty, public debate becomes narrower, and the search for truth becomes harder. You know, healthy democracies depend on something stronger than loyalty. They depend on scrutiny, not scrutiny of enemies alone. Scrutiny of friends, allies, and institutions as well. Because facts still matter, even when they're inconvenient. And if democratic values mean anything, they mean being willing to examine evidence, ask questions, and apply the same standards regardless of who holds power. That's the conversation this story is really forcing people to have. Now I want to hear from you. Do moments like this strengthen your confidence in our institutions, or raise bigger questions about accountability and power? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe these conversations matter, subscribe and help us build a community committed to facts, transparency, and democratic accountability. I'll see you in the next one.